Just as an aside, how many people yesterday when Biden said, and I was still able to work the whole time, went, oh, man, that's too bad. Yeah, I'm glad you're feeling better and everything, but really, I mean, you want to take a little time off. I mean, nothing is probably better than something. Hey, happy Thursday. Oh, that's right. It's not so happy, is it? Because look at that. Recession. What's fascinating, and it takes a special level of audacity by these elitist economists, these people who look down their nose at you, to have 2 consecutive quarters of negative economic growth, to have the average American family 4% worse off net of inflation than a year ago, and say, not a recession. Not a recession. Those people stink at life every bit as much as they stink at their jobs. Now, you, the vigilant listener you are, will know that going all the way back to mid-January, I began pointing out some of the economic data points I follow that concern me, specific to leading indicators for a recession. You'll know that before the end of the first quarter was up, I said this will be negative, and we are pacing a recession. I'm not going to get into all that and relive everything today, nor am I excited it happened, just as I was not excited about being correct about inflation being anything but transitory last year from the same elitist, wrong people. It really is remarkable, though, how many people in economic circles manage to make careers out of being wrong. But you know what? I got something that just might kind of blow your mind. I mean, like, even if you're cynical in your thought regarding a lot of economists, if you want to know what's really behind recession denial, if you want to know who these elitist economists really are, today's Q&A of the day, coming up at 11:50, I'm going to break it all down for you. And I think it's going to be eye-opening. Again, even if you're cynical in your approach. We got a lot to talk about during the course of the show, but we're going to start with another policy idea. Yesterday, you had the political expediency of Manchin, because that was kind of a cool idea, right? I mean, hey, we're in a recession. You know what we should be doing right now? Should be raising taxes. Yes, winning. Oh, and we ended up in a recession because of 41-year high inflation. You know what we should do? Invent some more money out thin air and create more artificial demand. These are great ideas. But aside from the political expediency of Manchin, there's another proposal out there. Democrats have introduced legislation to bring term limits about for Supreme Court justices. So what about all this? Chief of Staff at Young Americans for Liberty, Sean Themea, joins us once again. Sean, what do you make of this one?
Well, thanks for having me, Brian. You know, first and foremost, let's talk about the name of this bill that the Democrats put forward. They're calling it the Supreme Court Tenure Establishment and Retirement Modernization Act.
There you go. Rolls right off the tongue.
It sounds bad as it is. Yeah, it rolls right off the tongue. And the acronym for that is SCTERMA. I mean, SCTERMA? It sounds like a skin rash I would have at summer camp, you know? So a disgusting name for a disgusting bill. What I make of this is the Democrats are trying to mobilize their voters any way they can, because they certainly can't on the economy or on Biden's success or on really anything good. So they're taking advantage of the Supreme Court scare of, you know, the Supreme Court actually ruling based on the Constitution and saying, oh, we can't have that. We're going to need term limits. But you know what? We don't need term limits on the Supreme Court. We need term limits on the Democrats who do not follow the rule of law or actually give power to the American people.
You know, Sean, term limits, something that a lot of people in Congress have even supported and run on, generally on the right, that never comes about because when push comes to shove, they never come to vote for it. It's fascinating how people who have no interest in voting in term limits for themselves are interested in voting in term limits for a body that was protected without them for the purpose of not being influenced politically. There's irony in that, I would think.
Oh, the irony is not lost on me or the American people. these people, when they get in power, their heads get so big, they think it's all about them, and that comes at the expense of the little guy like you and I, right? It's a big club and we're not in it. But when it comes to this bill, I'm not concerned. I think if it does make it out of the House, it's dead on arrival in the Senate. I mean, this is a bill just to try and excite the Democrat base, try and please some Democrat donors. But we don't need term limits on the Supreme Court. I mean, we need some accountability, though, for judges and justices who do not follow the Constitution. I mean, that's the real danger.
Sure enough. I mean, this probably is not going anywhere, right? I mean, this is just kind of posturing for political purposes here.
Absolutely. I mean, again, there is nothing for the Democrats to actually run on other than pointing at somebody else and blaming them for all the problems that they've created. And since Trump's no longer in office, now it's the Supreme Court, right? When you look at the ruling to empower gun owners in New York, for example, common sense in line with the Second Amendment. Oh, we can't have that. We've got to get them out of the Supreme Court. We've got to have term limits. And the bill doesn't even make sense. They have term limits of 18 years on the justices, but then the president gets to appoint a justice every 1 to 3 years of his presidency, every other year.
There you go.
So
Why
it's
not?
chaotic. It doesn't make sense. But that doesn't matter. They don't need to make sense. They just need to scare people, the Democrats do.
Sean Themea, Chief of Staff at Young Americans for Liberty. Appreciate it, Sean.
Good to be here. Thanks, Brian.